whether we realize it or not, we are the future of the nation. There are so many things that will happen in the next 4 years that are determined by who I vote for today. For a long time, these parties have polarized everything. It's either everything, if I'm NDC, everything NDC is good, everything NPP is bad. Everything, if I'm NPP, everything NPP is bad, everything NDC is good. That kind of conversation literally, it blocks out that collaboration, that forward-thinking thing that we need. I don't think that the youth have been actively considered in even the kind of policies that the various political parties are proposing. So what can we do to make sure that this country is turning in the direction it needs to go in?
Now, according to the Youth Keni Foundation, about 73% of Ghana's population is made up of the youth. However, it surprises you to know that the level of youth participation in elections is very low, and they say that's problematic, especially looking at young people being the pioneers and the future of Ghana. It's very essential that we have a conversation where the youth will be forced to be part of the electoral process. My name is Gideon Nicholas, and this is Counted by the Youth. And on this week's episode, we sit with Youth Keni Ribeiro. She is a brands and communication strategist, youth advocate, and she says she's a citizen, right? So she's in the best state to talk about why young people should be part of the electoral process. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, yeah, we're talking about elections. I mean, I'm quite interested. When did you vote first? Maybe the election or something?
I think it was the year 2000 or 2004.
2000. Okay, we're not calculating your age now, but yeah.
2000.
2000.
Is it? I think so. Yeah.
Well, and how was the political season then? Do you remember?
Maybe I'm paying more attention now.
All right.
So now it seems more chaotic. But at the time, it was still very, campaign song here, rally here, radio ad here, TV ad here. Back then, there were debates. There are no debates this time around. There were conversations, there were all sorts of comparisons and things like that. So yeah, that's what I remember.
And looking at then and now, were there a lot of education on young people being part of the electoral process?
To be very honest, like I said, I wasn't as interested at the time, so I do not remember anything targeted at youth. But I do remember at the time I would see and hear ads on make sure you have your ID card, make sure you go early, make sure you are not wearing anything that's, party paraphernalia, be respectful, don't fight. I'm not seeing any of that this time around. I'm not seeing any of that.
And
maybe I'm missing it, but
I think
on my timeline, on everywhere I watch, consume information, I don't see it there.
It's a fair conversation because the NCC, the Electoral Commission, we've had engagements with them, and we are asking why aren't we seeing what we used to see, because there used to be ads and all, but it's like now the people that are not supposed to do the job of the Electoral Commission, the NCC, are the ones doing it, and it's quite problematic. But then looking at young people, why should young people be interested in the electoral process?
Well, I honestly believe that whether we realize it or not, we are the future of the nation. I know that people say that and it sounds very, it's like, it's cliche.
Yeah.
But the people who are leaders today were once youth. And a lot of their ideals, a lot of their concepts that they are using to carry out the things they are doing now came from their youth. So it's very essential for us at this time to make sure that we are in the right position to steer our nation in the right direction. Because at this point, we are in trouble. We are very far from where we should be. And it is not that we do not have capable people. It is not that we are not able to turn the situation around. It is that, unfortunately, we have sort of stopped the youth from playing an actual active role in this. I'll start by the fact that this election, for instance, I don't think that the youth have been actively considered in even the kind of policies that the various political parties are proposing. And when I say actively considered, I can almost hear either party saying, but we have this, but we have that, but we have this, but we have that. The problem is, I think for most of us, none of those parties have sat down to engage youth that are outside their political circles. Youth on the everyday streets, youth in the trotro, youth who are sitting at home, youth who are unemployed, like actual youth who don't have anything to gain by whatever response that they give you, which is majority of us, to figure out what the situation is now, what can we do to fix it, and what can we do to make sure that the kind of Ghana we should have had 10, 20 years ago that we do not even have today, we can find a way to educate, position, prepare ourselves for that Ghana. Nobody's engaging us. And when we do try to stand up for ourselves, we are treated like, for want of a better word, ants. And so it's like a nuisance.
But you're seeing a lot of youth participation nowadays in political issues. Illegal mining, you see them coming out, speaking for themselves. So there's a youth participation.
Yeah, there are repercussions. Again, if you're on social media, you would see that a lot of people who speak out either say that someone has called them to say be careful, or they've lost some scholarship, or there's always something at some point in time, which makes it easier for us to say, you know what, let me just mind my own business and sit somewhere and do not get involved in all of this. But the more we switch off, the more this nation continues to go in a direction that it shouldn't go in.
But how do we make the youth stop thinking that way? Like, how do we get them to participate in the election without thinking, oh, okay, if I participate, at the end of the day, I'm 13, I've done this, I'm done that. How do we get young people to be interested in the electoral process, go out there to vote?
I think the first thing is to realize that whether you live in Ghana or not, the state of this nation affects you in one way or the other.
Okay.
So even if you feel disillusioned, even if you feel switched off, things that happen in the political space will affect you. So it is important for you to take note of that. The person you elect into power determines the quality of your water. With Galamsey now. Yeah. It determines the quality of education you get. It determines the kind of opportunities you have as an entrepreneur, as a career professional, as someone who wants to build and scale like your life, the kind of opportunities your children would have. There are all sorts of things that go beyond the I don't feel like it. There are so many things that will happen in the next 4 years that are determined by who I vote for today. And so it is important for us to be intentional about that. Because if someone comes to campaign in my locality and I ask him pointed questions, and not just me, 10, 15 youth, ask him, so what are you doing to make sure that this country is AI ready for the next 10 years? 10 of you ask that question and they realize, oh, we don't have anything that's preparing. Even our current educational system is not preparing them to code. It's not preparing them to understand this. It's not preparing them. Those kind of questions we can ask. Most of the people that govern us are removed from these situations. They know of AI. They see it in other places when they travel. Sometimes they refer to it when they are talking about things. But there are no clear plans for what we're doing because there are very few youth driving those kind of conversations. So that's one thing. By actively thinking about what is going to happen with us, having conversations like this, having conversations on social media, by getting people to think about where are we going? How are we going to get there? I was saying on Twitter a few weeks ago that I think one of our challenges is most of our political parties think in terms of 4 years. actually, if we are being fair, 3 years, because you use the first half of the first year to adjust and appoint and get into the system, and now understand the country you have inherited from whoever you take over from. Then, by the time it's the last year, it's campaign season, and because of how blurred the lines of governance and political party politics are, it's very difficult to see the actual work being done. So you have like 3 years. But unfortunately, life is passing us by, because even within those 3 years, we spend so much time focusing on things that do not matter. And so even something as central as the Galamsey conversation became who has been paid to do it, who can you not see that we are doing something about it, take your time, who did it better, who has fought it better, who is suffering for it. And the water is still being polluted.
Right.
So those are the kind of things we need to talk about, because we are the ones who are unemployed. My parents, by my age, were a lot more comfortable than I am now. They had a lot more opportunities. It was easier for them to envisage how to buy land. It was easier for them to think of, okay, I want to do this, I want to start this business. It was easier for them to get a loan. It was easier for them to dream. Right now, the Ghanaian youth cannot afford to dream, because somebody has saved his money hoping that he will get into a master's program, then DDEP happens to him. And that's it. And now we are hearing Canada is saying you can't come, UK will say you can't come, US is saying you can't come. His dream is shattered because of someone who was in power.
But then in terms of the participation, don't the manifestos, the policies matter? Don't they also drive interaction and to get some people to be interested in voting?
Like I said, my problem with all those manifestos is they are too short term. I wish that Ghana had a national agenda, something. Think the next 100 years. This is what we want. We want to make sure that we have roads.
Some sustainability, something.
There are all sorts of plans, and nobody is following through. And we are the ones being affected, because a lot of our politicians are comfortable, and they are going to continue to build comfortable lives for themselves. Unfortunately, in that time that they are building those lives, we are continuing to become poorer and poorer. So we really need to lead that conversation.
So none of the manifestos stand out for you that you think, oh, this should catch the youth attention. There's free senior high school, there's free level 100, there's free education for people with disability, persons living with disability when they go to tertiary.
My question with all of that is how are we going to fund that? And actually, every time anyone calls me, so either from the NPP camp or the NDC camp, I ask them, so how do you plan to fund this? Oh, if you check the manifesto is there, there's always some story. But we should be at a point where it's not even an NPP, NDC, Freedom Party, whatever party conversation. It should be a national party, a national conversation with each of the parties showing we are getting to, let's say, from here to Okponglo. This is how I intend to get us to Okponglo. This is how I intend to get us to Okponglo, for us to pick who we think would better get us there. Because I don't think that NDC has all the solutions. I don't think NPP has the solutions. I don't think the solutions to fix this country reside in any of those political parties alone.
Okay.
I believe that we are at a point where we all need to, as a nation, figure out how can we get here and actively push that agenda. So the private sector should say, okay, this year our CSR, we are donating it to helping to fix this and this and this in terms of education, because our target is to make sure that there are a certain number of schools with a certain minimum standard of care. That kind of thing is what I think the youth can drive, because for a long time these parties have polarized everything. It's either everything, if I'm NDC, everything NDC is good, everything NPP is bad. Everything, if I'm NPP, everything NPP is bad, everything NDC is good. that kind of conversation literally, it blocks out that collaboration, that forward thinking thing that we need. And they have grown up with that. It's in their DNA.
But do you think we can have, okay, so I think NDC and people have dominated, but then can we have other parties being able to reach that momentum that NDC and NPP has reached, to be able to give people a fresh perspective? Because I know there are other parties that have come, but still we see that they might not pull the numbers that NDC and NPP does pull.
I'd say nothing is impossible, because NDC and NPP came from somewhere. When Ghana became independent, there was no NDC and there was no NPP. And I'm sure that at the time, UGCC, CPP, and all of those, UP probably thought that they would be there. I mean, we were there when the country became independent. How can you write us out of this? But now we almost never have a national conversation and actively seek for the CPP point of view. So anything is possible.
Anything is possible, you say. What is the role of young people? I mean, what would young people bring to the table if they go out to vote? I mean, compared to older generations?
Well, I think everybody has one thumb. So every single youth has one thumb, just like every single older person has one thumb. I think the conversation shouldn't end when you vote. Like I said, you should actively follow through. What is happening in my constituency? Who's in charge of my constituency? Who is my MC? Who is my DC? Who is in charge of making sure that we have a market, that it's clean? Because everybody does the right thing when they know someone is watching, or someone is going to hold them accountable for it. So we need to actively do those things. We need to actively push. Because we've created the standard of, oh, you give me a shirt, you attend my funeral, you brand a bus stop for me, I'll vote for you. That's the standard they will give you. But when it is time for election, they know that I need to convince this person because every thumb counts. So they go out of their way and pound fufu, sweep your floor, wash your clothes, whatever it is you need, so that your one thumb will count in their direction, which means that you count. But I think because we are the ones dealing with unemployment, we are the ones dealing with all the things that are stopping us from setting ourselves up to be the next working force of our nation, it is time for us to speak up. It's time for us to speak up, not just in a, okay, this is my party, so I can't talk much. This is my party, so I'll let it slide. Or I don't like this party, so I'll say it's very...
What do you think about youth, young people taking sides with this party, NDC, NPP, and arguing their point out?
I don't think there's anything wrong with it, so long as it is not at the expense of the nation. But unfortunately, that's what I find is the case with most of them. I see it on my Twitter timeline all the time. It's a very hard position. Everything that my party has done is perfect. If you can't see it, there's something wrong with you. And that's their position. So they will resort to insulting you, they will resort to belittling you, looking for pictures of you and to laugh at you. Anything to take away from the fact that you are pointing that there's a gap in whatever they are doing. That's the problem.
Do you think that the political parties have communicated their strategies and their policies well enough?
Nope.
Why?
Absolutely. See, because I've been talking about this on my Twitter for a while now. No. You just mentioned a statistic at the beginning about how many of us are youth. Another thing I heard about a week ago was that there are about, let's say for the population that has not voted before, first-time voters, more than half of them are within our age bracket. So for me, that tells me that I'm expecting that every single political party that is interested in winning this election and understands the stake that this youth demographic has will take it seriously and address us. I don't think any of them have done that effectively. Interestingly, back in the day, I think Akufo-Addo did that really well in, I think, 2016. Yes, he was always tweeting. And now it's biting him in the back because we have references of things he said. Maybe that's why they're not tweeting at all. But then there's TikTok, there's Instagram. I expected that at least one of them would have gone live to say youth should ask them questions. What do you want to do? I mean, honestly, if any of you haven't done it, this is free advice. I won't charge you. Do it. Because you need to get in the faces of the people, the rallies, the propaganda on Twitter, on radio and TV. We are not the target audience, but we are voting. So who is talking to us? Who is thinking about our problems? Our siblings are going through free SHS, and it's a struggle. What's the state of our educational system right now? When can we have an honest conversation about this without this being and I did it and I will cancel it and I will abolish it? The point is our children, our siblings are suffering when it comes to the quality of education. And in the end, we, the youth, are the ones who will suffer because we are the ones who will employ them in future. By that time, all the people who are playing politics with this would have resigned, would have retired, would have probably relocated from this country. And the rest of us will be sitting here. So for me, it can't be just come and speak to us. And the fact that they are not speaking to us, for me, tells me that they don't fully understand how integral we are to this. Also because most of us are laid back and switched off.
In your experience as brands and communications, marketing, a bit, what strategies do you think will work to grab the youth attention for the election?
First of all, speak their language.
So,
I'm not talking about coming to insert is given something in your speech.
Yeah,
no,
I think
Baumia did that. That's cute for a one-off, but that's not it. I'm expecting that after a conversation like that, you take out your phone, pretty much like this, and record a video telling us, "Hi, my name is Mahmoud Baumia, something. I just finished this conversation. These are the 5 tips I want you to remember about my manifesto." None of them has done that. Am I lying? Maybe it's my timeline.
I think Kamala Harris was doing that for her campaign in the US.
You need to reach the people, all the people. You can't just go to the markets and the rest of us, we don't count. We count. So I think that's lacking. I think they haven't been intentional enough in engaging us. I was expecting that at least, even honestly, I think that all the other political parties missed a way of getting themselves to become a little more of choice during the Galamsey situation. Alan Tremantin did well, actually, but I also think he wasn't as strategic and deliberate enough, because he did go and give support, he tweeted, he did a press conference, he did all of those things, which is what I would expect anyone who is vying for president to do in solidarity, not because campaigning for Galamsey to stop and being arrested for protesting, all those are precedents that in future will affect the faith that people have in institutions, the faith that people have in the structure of democracy. That the ripple effects are so many. So I'm expecting every one of them to speak up, and they didn't speak up loud enough.
Interesting. So you mentioned social media usage. Which other one do you work for?
I would say they should. Well, I also think another thing they could have done was to have more podcast conversations. Has any of them come to City yet?
We plan on having Alan soon, but then.
Okay. None of them has come to City. How many weeks are we away from elections? They should be where the youth are, because the youth don't listen to radio anymore. They are not tuning into Oman FM or City FM, except if they are driving to work or something like that. But during the day, everyone is tuned into a podcast or something on YouTube so those kind of conversations, and those conversations should be had honestly and frankly. Actually, I think a few of them have been to Kojo Sheldon's show. Yeah. But again, it can't just be, it should be seen as I'm trying to reach as many people as possible to tell them what my policies are. I don't think I fully understand the 24-hour economy. And I was expecting videos, animations, you know,
Explanation.
like I've seen videos talking about this is what Mahama said in the past, this is what Baumia has done.
Yeah.
Nobody is actually explaining what their policies would do, what it would break down, how that policy will translate into results for me. It's almost as if those who are discerning voters are not considered their target audience.
Discerning voters, you say.
Yes. Because if you tell me Baumia is a Muslim and he's
Yeah.
chewing pork, that's not something that's going to...
Yeah, proper youth.
it doesn't register anything for me. So I'm not the target audience for that.
But okay, you had said no earlier, but I was hoping maybe some campaign messaging that stands out for you. I mean, top of your head. If you look
I
at-
like Mohammed's song.
Okay. I think they are
I
always
think his
good
song
at
is
their
great.
songs.
I think maybe one thing that he could have done a little more was probably, you know, create a social media challenge out of the song, because it's quite it hits all the points. So find a way to get the youth to jump on that. But again, like I said, nobody's thinking about us, and it's a problem for me.
Right, nobody's thinking about us. It's a problem. So creating a song as well. So aside that as well, you've noticed the other parties. I think the new force was talked about some 12 pillars. I mean, it's even the new force, even as a phrase, it gives like an alternative to.
To be fair, yes, because he's younger, it's a new vibe to jump on. But I also expected a lot more from him.
Okay.
He has used social media. I mean, he's done the videos, even though those backfired for him when he spoke about Galamsey. But I was expecting him to also do lives. Maybe if he has 12 pillars, that's short and sweet. Then there should be an individual video on each of them, breaking it down, helping us to understand, sitting here discussing with you. I haven't seen any of that. So for all of them...
So I'm sure by the time they are done watching this video, they are going to re-strategize their political campaign.
I doubt it.
Maybe a few of them. We can, but how can young people hold political leaders accountable? I mean, when we bring them into office and they are doing things that are not right of what they promised in a peaceful way. Yeah.
1, speak up.
Okay.
2, don't make it look as if speaking up means that we don't care about the nation. Because most of the time that's a rhetoric. You people are just trying to, you people have just been paid, you people just want attention. I'm sure someone would say, this girl just wants attention. This girl has been paid by a political party, or she wants a position. Because that's how we have...
I mean, a community society.
We have socialized ourselves to believe that if anybody's speaking up, that's the reason why. And so people would shut up even though they know the right thing, because I don't want you to come and talk to me anyhow. Because that's what tends to happen. So we should make it fashionable to be a citizen again.
Okay, fashionable to be a citizen, a very important point. Anyway, we're wrapping up the conversation, and I just wanted to touch on some misconceptions young people have about the electoral process and how we can address them as well, meaning wrapping comment.
So my fight with the EC and the NCC that you said you brought here is that I can't find anything. So that is how misconceptions would thrive. Then the information isn't there. For instance, can I vote with my Ghana card? Can I vote with... there are people saying they can vote with their Ghana card. So where's the information? Who are you telling? Those of us who are first-time voters in that category, how are you reaching us? Because we are not listening to radio or TV, like I said. So how are you reaching us? The door-to-door, the things that what are the flyers? What are they?
I don't think if I didn't listen to radio, I wouldn't have known.
What I've noticed is that we have so many creative people. There are artists, there are writers, there are musicians, there are animators, and that really came forth during the Galamsey protests. So I think that that's a good way for you to get that message across, because if somebody does an animation, I was trying to mention some of the people, but I don't want to put anyone on the spot. But if that kind of person does an animation, it will get thousands of views in a day on Twitter. And that is a better way of reaching them. And a fraction of the cost of misconceptions and the lack of information will disenfranchise us even more, because people will not show up to vote, or will show up and be turned away, or will vote the wrong way, especially because it's the first time. So yeah, those are some of my worries.
How do we address, Ben, I just 2 points on how we can address some of these challenges. I mean, aside the NCC and EC, of course, if they're not doing it, what can we do on the side?
We've had this conversation. I think having conversations is important because, again, I keep referring to Galamsey because it's the most recent one, but I realized that there was a time, I think we're doing something called evangelism, that everyone should go and talk to somebody, like tell people about what's happening in your neighborhood, what's happening. And there were a lot of people who were hearing about the actual Galamsey story for the first time. Like, oh, I didn't know. Oh, really? Is that what is happening? Oh, so what can we do? If we continue to have the conversations, people will, because we are all suffering and we can feel that the nation is not going in the direction it should go in. That is a very universal feeling. I have friends who have had to relocate to go to another country where they don't have access to delicious Ghanaian foods. They don't have the support systems of Ghana. And they are braving it alone because it will give them a better chance at a life than if they were here. Their families miss them. They wish they could come back. But what's there to come back to? And those conversations are things that we can all empathize with if you are not insulated from the problems by politics. So I think we should just start having those conversations. Having those conversations will make us move to the, so how can we fix this? What can we do? Because this is the only Ghana we have. This is the only place where I can eat my wache with relish and joy and get kilewele at 6 p.m. It's the only place. So what can we do to make sure that this country is turning in the direction it needs to go in? So have those conversations and be honest about them. It can't just be a short-lived thing. And I honestly hope that these long-term conversations would be had, led by the youth, hopefully in conjunction with whoever wins the election, so that we can get towards the right direction in some way. Because right now we're too polarized, everybody is thinking, oh, you are Muslim, oh, you are Christian, oh, you are from this region, or you are from that region. There's so much division, and unfortunately we are just using that to further divide us, to further deteriorate our progress and all of that. So those conversations need to start.
We must have those conversations. Thank you so much, Keni, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Youth Keni Ribeiro, I hope I didn't want to murder the name. Youth Keni Ribeiro is a brands and communication strategist and a speaker, and she's a citizen as well. She's been speaking on why, as a young person, you should vote, and also analyzing some of the messaging from the various political parties. Hope this inspires you to go out to vote on December 7. My name is Gideon Nicholas, and this has been Counted by the Youth.